Well, good morning and welcome to another Memphis Monday. Today we got a pretty fun project. A friend of mine has a little cubby hole that he wants to put shelves in. The cubby hole is about 3 feet deep and about 4 feet wide. And so today we're going to build a prototype of the shelving system that I'm going to help him install. So let's knock off the chatter and get to work, huh? Let me go show you what it looks like. Okay, since we're building a prototype, I don't have a prototype. All I have is this little pencil drawing. I shaded it in and darkened the outlines of the shelves, so shelves make it a little bit clear. But the thing is going to be made up. It's 36 inches deep, 46 inches wide. The first shelf starts at a foot, and then there's 15 inches between each shelf. The shelves consist of 5 U-shaped shelves that'll be notched for the 8 legs. First thing we're going to work on is the U-shaped shelves. So let's get to work. First thing I do is cut 3 sheets of plywood, 1/4-inch plywood, directly in half. I'm doing 3 sheets at a time. You'll see why in a second. Okay, this is pretty obvious, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because I actually made this mistake here recently. I need to cut off, to get down to my 46 inches, I need to cut off 2 inches off the end here, and my fence will be against this edge here. I don't set my fence at 2 inches or 5.1 centimeters because I have to account for the blade. If I set it at 2 inches, the blade's going to be over here, and I'm going to end up cutting it 3 millimeters too narrow. So what you have to do is account for the thickness of your blade, the kerf thickness, and in my case it's 3 millimeters. So I subtract that from 5.1 and I get 4.8 centimeters. So I'm going to set my blade at 4.8
Okay, just a little review here.
Each of the shelves, the 5 shelves, will be a C shape like this out of 1 continuous sheet of plywood. Let me go show you the setup. Taking the 5 shelves, the stock for the 5 shelves, nailed it together with brads so that I can cut all 5 shelves at once, because they have to be, so if they're wrong, they're going to be all wrong together, and if they're all wrong together, they're not wrong. Okay, to cut out the center section of the shelf section, I got it marked here. I got it propped up on some dunnage and clamped together so it won't move. And I'll cut out this center section all at one time. I got all the 5 shelves cut out. And I also wiped a little stain on all the parts, because staining this thing after it's assembled would be a nightmare. So here's the assembly setup. I got the legs set up on some 90-degree angles. Shelves are supported by cleats that run across that way, and then there'll be another one holding up the center here. That's what I'm working on now. Let me keep working on this, and I'll show you this first layer if I ever get it done. Perfect fit. Well, I got the first shelf on there, but that assembly jig that I showed you just wasn't working. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna assemble the shelves separately and then install the entire shelf with the actual shelving material is very light. It's only, they call it 1/4 inch plywood, but it's actually 3/16 inch plywood. I mean, it's good plywood, but it's still light. The shelving system gets its strength from these stringers that I attach to the bottom. So the weight of whatever you're putting on the shelf is carried by these stringers. And I have four of these stringers, plus a stringer across the back here. So let me attach these and we'll have another one done. Okay, I got the next shelf tacked together. Let's look at the plan. Okay, the plan is, you see those couple of clamps. Plan is I'm going to put clamps at the appropriate level all around where the second shelf is, and then lower this down through the top, and then it'll sit on the clamps while I screw it in place. So let me get those clamps on there and we'll see if this plan works. Okay, all the clamps are in place. Let's see if we can lower this thing down on there. And that's all she wrote. Now, next step is to screw that shelf, or screw the legs onto the shelf. I got that third shelf on there. Let me show you. This is the stringer here, and you know it's got to be lined up on these notches. And I thought it was going to be more difficult, but it turns out it's not difficult at all, because since this stringer lines up on this notch, all I got to do is line it up at this end, and then I just come down here to the other end and nail it at this end, and now it's aligned. Here I'm nailing in the brace for the back shelf. And now that I have the back shelf brace nailed into the other braces, I can nail it from the front. Well, I got the carcass finished. What I'm doing now is lay it down on the floor and put a back on the back of it using screws. Because I want to be able to get it off. And that back looks really good. I'm going to tip it back over and put the back all the way down to the bottom of the shelf. And then this piece will fit right on there. Well, there's what you looks like so far. Next thing we're going to start working on is the okay. What we're going to start working now is the oak trim. All the edges of these shelves will be covered by oak trim. The first thing we have to do is we have to build up this gap right in here to provide a nail. 10 of these spacers. They'll all be the same size. So I just set up a stop block on my now this is real simple, but if you don't do it, you can't put trim on. All I'm doing is putting a little glue on the wood. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm leaving a gap here for the legs to fit in. And then this just gets nailed in place. Here's a trim I came up with. Not gaudy or fancy, but it makes the work look finished. Since our new set of shelves doesn't have wheels and never will, I've had to move my chop saw over next to it so that I don't spend 4 hours walking back and forth to my chop saw. Start cutting some trim. Most angle cuts you make on trim for woodworking projects, you're going around the outside of something. But in this case, we're going on the inside, and so we have an inside angle here. So the piece of trim will fit. I've never seen this done before, so maybe we're inventing something. I don't want this trim to stick to these legs, so I'm going to coat them with well, I got all the trim in. But when I was looking through my trim stock, I found this little molding detail. I was going to leave the trim, just leave this edge here revealed, which would flow nicely into the trim. I don't have any problem with that. But it's not taking the stain well. I got that trim on it. I'm telling you what, this thing looks way too good to be a prototype. I think I'm going to call my buddy and tell him I'm going to try to figure out a way to take this thing apart, and we'll just install this one because this thing turned out way better. I talked to my buddy and I sent him some pictures of this, and he agrees that this is probably about as good as we're going to do. So my job now is to figure out how to take this thing apart without destroying it. Let's try taking this top layer off. Wonder why it won't come off. As I think I said, I'm not going to reuse these legs. I'm not satisfied with them. So these inner four legs, I'm going to just chop off to make this top easier to get off. The reason I'm making a big deal about this is these inner legs are surrounded by trim. Now theoretically, they should just come right out because they're not glued or nailed. The trim is not glued or nailed to them, but the world isn't perfect. The outer legs, however, are no problem because they're not surrounded by trim, and I can just take these screws right out. I just decided to apply the reasonable man idea, and I just took all the screws out and took it apart instead of doing all that thinking. Well, these are going to be the new legs here. Solid oak. These were the prototype legs right here, and they were fine for the prototype, but of course on the final product, totally unsatisfactory. Well, that'll do it for another Memphis Monday. Put my drawing up here, pretty proud of it. Not that it's such a good drawing, but the fact that it's so close to what the thing actually came out to look like. Well, as you recall, the plans changed, and we finished the prototype, which was what we advertised. But now we've decided that we're going to go ahead and do the real deal here in the shop. So that will be phase 2, part 2, next week. So tweet, Facebook, like and comment, all that business, and but most of all, make sure you're back here next week so you can see the final product. Thanks for watching.